welcome back to Talkin' Topics, where we talk topics, usually ones that are relatively cursed in nature, but not always. We talk about some other things, like today. We're probably going to talk about a little bit of history. With me today, as always, is Mike, water baron of the Detroit exclusionary zone at this point.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So
Call me with a water baron.
Yeah. So like anything new there, like any re-revolutions or anything?
No, I control more water though.
Oh, okay. Like, what'd you get?
I'm up to 2 lakes out of the 5.
Oh shit! Damn. So you're like the king of the Great Lakes or whatever.
Baron.
Oh yeah, my bad. Well, in any case, we also have Nerdvana. You do Twitch stuff, right?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah. So what's up with you, Nerd? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I play games on Twitch sometimes. Mostly I play with some other very chaotic people and we scream a lot on Minecraft.
Oh, wonderful. So you're one of those Minecraft streamers.
Yeah, usually.
Oh, does that mean you have like an army of children that defends you?
No, I have an army of 20-year-olds.
Ah, damn.
Yes, so an army of children.
Yeah, you should get some children. Yeah, they can carry you around on like a palanquin or whatever, and then you can dictate to them so that they'll like write down your messages and then bring them down from the mountain to share with all the other children in middle school or whatever. I'm sorry, I guess a lot of the fucking Minecraft stands are in high school. I'll give them a little credit.
Yeah. I mean, I could probably get my brother on that.
Oh hell yeah! Does he have like some stone tablets you can inscribe your fucking language in?
I don't know. I'll find out.
Yeah, honestly, the main thing is you need to like mythologize yourself and get some type of clip, and then have it spread like a fucking virus throughout. That's probably a bad way to say that. Throughout all the high schools, and then once you do that, you'll have like 3 million fucking Twitter followers or whatever, and people will constantly shame you for I don't even know, misgendering dirt or some shit. I have no idea. I don't go on Minecraft's stan Twitter very often, but whenever I do, it's really fucked. Like I have no idea what the fuck they're saying.
I don't fucking touch Twitter at all.
Oh, you should. It's really funny. Just don't participate. It's kind of like going to the zoo. Like everyone's like fucking screaming and throwing shit at each other and shit, and you're just like, hey. Also, yeah, there's a lot of people trying to sell you stuff.
Yeah, you just stand behind outside the enclosure, and you're just like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, well, so if you don't, there's a good chance that you'll get the shit on you, and then you'll become one of the exhibits. You know what I mean? It's very dangerous.
Yeah, true.
I think that the hell site is very much a vacation destination and not a place you definitely want to move to.
Yeah, no.
This is why I have lived on Tumblr for almost 12 years.
Oh, you're like a refugee, yeah? You survived the apocalypse?
Oh, I've survived all of the apocalypse.
Oh, yeah. Damn, so you know about all this shit. You were there for what is it, the cock monologue or whatever? I don't know much about Tumblr, but I have a lot of friends who use it. So I know there's some legendary shit the weed smoking girlfriends, the cock monologue. What else was there?
I mean, we've got the porn ban. That's the most notable thing that happened.
What was that, 2014, 2015?
I think it was 2015.
Yeah, I was about to say they tanked there. Who bought them? Was it Verizon?
Verizon.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like 100. It was like 100 or like 1,000% loss or some shit
Yeah, that. And they were like, yes, this is a good deal, and we're all just like, you know what? If it kills everybody else, that's fine, because we'll just live here in this pile of shit.
Yeah, it's it's pretty rough from what I've been told. I know, there's a lot of shit that still happens on Tumblr, but Tumblr has become this weird bizarro land where basically every single thing on there, or every single person on there, is either, really into it or has been there for fucking forever. So every new thing they post is just, it's 20 layers of ironic and 3 different references all, formulated into, a single sentence. It's very strange.
Well, the thing that people don't get is Tumblr is not a social media site. Tumblr is a blogging website with social media aspects. So when people from Twitter or TikTok come over to Tumblr, they're like, I don't get it. I don't understand this, because you have to go and find content to follow. and it's not spoon-fed to you like it is on those apps. And so they're like, I don't get this. And it's like, good, leave. We don't want you.
Yeah, it's very strange in that, like, a lot of shit that I see on Tumblr, like, people who, like, know each other from there, it's like, oh, I saw this on your blog or whatever. It's not like they don't, like, comment on the shit you post, if that makes any sense, like you would in, like, Twitter or something. You just see it and then talk to them about it later. I know the most recent thing I'm aware of is there was that Guy Fieri ARG or whatever, where he was, like, fucking the Dr. Phil Eminem, and they were, like, getting gay married and shit.
Yes, a very normal sentence.
Yeah, are you not aware of that, Mike? That's definitely
I guess I missed that one.
It's pretty great. Yeah, there's like 20. It's like, I think it was originally a meme where they used ASCII characters to put the Dr. Phil green M&M into like the Tumblr source code or whatever, and then like one of the Tumblr devs also had like an Instagram page or something, or like it might have been another Tumblr blog where they posted a bunch of like pics of Guy Fieri, like, and like, oh, on Food Network, blah, 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 or whatever. And then, like, there'd be hidden messages in it or some shit. It's very strange. It was supposed to be, like, somebody from a different dimension was using this Guy Fieri blog in order to communicate with the people of Tumblr. Very strange shit.
I think, it was either early this year or, like, last year that happened. Yeah.
I think it was late last year, or it was in, like, February of this year. I do remember it being very recent. It's very strange, though.
Yeah, that was a whole thing. And like that's something that whole chain of things has happened before in Tumblr history, where like there's a meme and then you go and you search the code for the meme, and then there's binary, and then you go and decode the binary, and then there's another cipher and you have to go decode the cipher, and then it ends in a rickroll after you go through like 15 sets of shit or something.
Yeah, see, that's what I mean. Like, to get Tumblr jokes, you have to be like...
you have to know what you're doing.
It's very strange, yeah. Like, Tumblr used to be like a proper community. They had like walls, and that was like understanding how to use Tumblr. But once you got past the walls, you were inside. Now it's like a fucking bunker where every like 2 steps there's a security door that another Tumblr person has to clear you through, or you have to hack the console in order to get in. So like you can never actually get to the fucking content because you're like, you have no idea what the fuck is happening all the time.
Yeah, like you find people to follow and you're like, oh, okay, these blogs seem cool. You follow them, and then you're there for like a week, and then you start getting like spike traps and Homestuck jokes and shit like that, and you're like, if you weren't around for any of that, you're like, the fuck is happening right now?
Yeah, Homestuck is definitely some Tumblr shit. I knew some girls in like middle school who they were like, I don't know how the better way to say it than like you could see them and like, oh yes, they use Tumblr or whatever, right? And what, Mike? Did they not have Tumblr in the exclusionary zone?
Whenever I was in middle school, I was one of those people that you could look at me and you're like, ah, yes, they have a Tumblr.
Yeah, and then they would like talk about Homestuck shit, and I'm like, I don't get it. Is it about the gray dudes or like what the fuck?
I never actually read Homestuck, but I know so much about it from being on Tumblr for so long that I can look at a shit post and go, yep, that's a Homestuck reference.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Tumblr's so fucking weird. In any case, if you guys would like to join me, well, actually, we'll wait a second. So, nerd, what do you know about science history?
Depends on the section of it.
Ah, dang. Well, in any case, shit, I was hoping
what
you'd
do you
say
know
nothing.
about the entire history of science?
Yeah, well, I was gonna say that's a very broad question.
Well, are you aware of like a lot of the controversial science experiments done in like from the 1960s to around the 1970s, mostly regarding the emerging field of psychology?
I'm sure I know some of them, but like not off the top of my head.
Well, have you ever heard of the Stanford prison experiment?
Heard of it? Yes. Can I think of what it is? No.
A quick rundown is that basically at Stanford, they had a bunch of students come in and live in like these effectively like prisonatized dormitories, where some of the students were guards and some were like prisoners or whatever. And the dude was hoping to see what would happen but like it was lambasted by the scientific community in general for being like an example of where people sort of try to get the thing they want out of the study as opposed to just conducting a study, where they were like motivating the guards to be shitheads and like not letting the doing anything about like basically active fucking with of the like quote unquote prisoner students. So it's generally regarded as like one of like the most sloppy experiments, and it basically has no scientific basis, but it was trying to show that like when people are given a position of authority, anyone can do bad, which in my opinion is just like a way to sort of like justify like the violence of institutions or whatever. That's why I'm like, yeah, bro, sure. People are just bored shitheads, I guess, and there's no way to fix it. Oh, right. But he became super, super popular off that study. I think he's still writing it to this day. And that's an example because back then psychology wasn't like established, if that makes any sense. Like, for example, psychology wasn't really like properly in the public consciousness until after World War II, almost entirely because of the Nazis and by extension the Holocaust, right? So out of that came a bunch of shit. Also, fun fact, that's where Scientology comes from. Is sort of like a rejection of modern, I say quote unquote modern, like post 1940s or 1945, 1960 or 1946 psychology. Like that modern psychology was basically people didn't understand it. So like Scientology was the answer to that, where people would it was called something else beforehand. Dianetics, there you go. But Dianetics was like the answer to modern psychology, and Scientology sort of emerged from Dianetics once they figured out what did and did not work. So Dianetics is basically like the beta. But just to sum that all up, there's a lot of bullshit from that period about like science, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And today, and specifically psychology. And today, we're going to talk a little bit about I think one of the most interesting yet fucking stupid experiments I know of. Also, if you've never heard of the Bad Charlie experiments or whatever the fuck, where they like basically like tortured babies, is the best way I can describe it. They didn't literally, but like they kind of did. Or basically they abused children as an experiment, right? This is sort of in the same vein, except it's not on people. Have you ever heard of a Mr. John B. Calhoun?
I think.
You think? What do you think you here? Before you say anything, I'll show you a picture if you want to look at the general. Have you seen this man? Do you know who this man is? Also, I believe that is a picture of a Polaroid.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah. But yeah, what do you think of Mr. John Calhoun?
I recognize the name, but it's been so long since I've taken any courses that I don't remember anything.
I think because I think you might be confusing it with John C. Calhoun, who I think was a vice president.
Yes, this is John B. Calhoun.
Because that's what I immediately thought.
Also, by the way, I bet you cannot guess what my man's middle name is. B. He was born in 1917, so it's an older name. But what do you think the B in his name is? John B. Calhoun.
I have no idea.
Mike?
Oh, it's probably something really weird like Bartholomew or Baxter.
Ooh, no, it's Bumpus.
Really?
Yeah, it's John Bumpus Calhoun, spelled bump ass. If you want to, there's how you spell his name. It's John Bump Ass Calhoun. But John Calhoun was an ethologist. Do you know what ethology is?
No.
Ethology?
Ethology.
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 Is that like the science of ethics?
No, that would just be ethics. No, ethology is the science of animal behavior. So he studied animal behavior and how they did things, right? And do you know what he was most famous for? Also, he's American, if it matters to you. I don't know how you could think. I know he looks like he's got like that weird old German man vibe, but he is definitely an American boy.
Yeah, I don't know that I can think of a single place outside of the U.S. where you could have like the name Bumpus.
Yes, it's Mr. Bump Ass. But his main sort of research area was actually, and obviously behavioral research, But the thing he's famous for is his behavioral research on population density and its effect on generalized behaviors. Now, you're probably wondering, oh, how could that be? Like, how did he do that, right? But what he did is originally he had at Johns Hopkins University. He did a little experiment. It took about 28 months, where he had a little colony of Norway rats, right, in a little outdoor pen, and the amount of females he started with could theoretically produce 5,000 healthy little rat babies or whatever, right? For that pen size, right? That's the expected amount. They never actually got more than 200 people ever, 200 rats ever in that little outdoor pen, and it was usually around 150 or so. And they would tend to cluster up in certain areas, in sort of like little rat clans, if that makes any sense, right? As opposed to just like sort of being one big rat community. So he was like, that's a little fucking weird. Because he was like, why do animal not just like fuck and baby all over the pen? So he was like, very, very interesting. What he did was he got a barn. A big fucking barn, right? And he went up to the second floor of that barn. And he renovated it. And he made like not only his little rat experiment area, but also his like office. And according to people who've been there, apparently the rodent odor was overpowering to the point where it took some time to continue to be able to breathe normally once again. So what he did, right, was he had a little center area with a big ass box room, and in that little box he had 4 separate little habitats for these rats. Right, this is the second experiment, and each one had a little door you could peek in, fill their food up, whatever you had to do, and a window to look in. So they would just basically spend their time looking into these 4 separated rat rooms, and then on the corner of each of them was like a sort of little burrow, and I'll post a picture of how it was designed for you, if you want to look in there. It looked like this. He's got little rat rooms. You see what I mean? The one on the top right, that's a piece
like a
of
cross section.
Yeah, cross section. There you go. And if you notice, there's like little bridges that go across each one of them. You see what I mean? On the left, right, and bottom, where there's one that does not allow you to cross. So he was like, all right, let's see what the mouse do. And by looking at this, he eventually decided that based on how the mouses were sort of like moving to each of the feeders and each of the little drinking stations, he decided that the rats would eventually do something called what he dubbed the behavioral sink. Now, what do you think the behavioral sink is? If you had to guess. All these rats started doing what he called the behavioral sink.
And this is for
this big burrow. Yes, they began to do something he called the behavioral sink because they had certain behavioral. God, that's a hard ass word. Patterns.
Okay. Well, if I had to guess, I would guess that he's using sink in the same sense as like heat sink. So some sort of behavioral dumping ground. I don't know.
Fucking nerd. You have any idea what that might be?
I was thinking more of like in each of the different colonies, each of like the behavioral patterns would start lining up.
Sort of, actually. So what he observed was that of the 4 different sort of like individual habitats, originally the rats did their normal rat behavior and how people examine them in the wild and in sort of like dense areas, how they behaved. They stopped doing that. Eventually, each of the sort of groups of rats started breaking off into their own, where originally it would be how it would normally be, where basically some type of dominant rats would basically gain control of the female rats and basically guard them as like a harem or whatever, which is what like normal rat behavior, right? Eventually, they just stopped giving a shit, right? The big rats stopped giving a shit, and they weren't able to defend themselves or defend their females or whatever from the sort of like, I guess you'd call them beta rats, if you will. And then they just stopped defending them. The other thing that happened was that the female rats became extremely agitated and did not like anything happening to them. It would just generally be aggressive as shit. So he was like, that's really weird. The other thing that finally happened was that a lot of the male rats who weren't able to mate or whatever ended up sort of sequestering themselves into their own pens and generally being shitheads to each other, right? So he basically was like, I see. If I make little rat cities, right? Eventually, all of their sort of behaviors just kind of fall into shit, and they go a little crazy because they're clearly too close together. So he was like, how do I improve on this experiment? I know. I'll make it not little rat boxes, but a rat city. And thus he devised one of the more infamous experiments from this time period called the Mouse Utopia experiments. And pictured there is the Mouse Utopia.
Man, it really looks like some sort of demonic summoning circle.
That was kind of my thought too.
Yes, if you notice, there's something weird about how like the sides of that Mouse Utopia are sort of constructed. Those are like their little houses, right? What do you think that kind of looks like?
Like he's got like a bunch of like canisters of like liquid situated.
That's
all
for
around.
drinking. That's for drinking.
Yeah. Oh, those are rats.
Yeah, in the little things. That's where they live.
Yeah, I thought this image got like blasted with radiation. So there was a bunch of, like, stuff all over it, but no, it's just like rats.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of rats in there. The entire thing is full of rats. Also, can we just point out that he's about to drop a very hot mixtape in there?
He does have that kind of pose.
Yeah. What do those little like thingies remind you of? Those little compartments where they live. Does it give
like,
you? Yeah.
They're like apartment blocks.
Yeah, it looks a little like that, doesn't it? So when he noticed that these rat boys, right, were going a little fucking crazy, he was like, I know how I can get... Now, okay, this is obviously conjecture. I'm not saying he literally thought this, right? But this is how I imagine it going, right? He was like, Well, I see that the rats wild the fuck out when I put them in weird-ass fucking, like, brick cages and shit. And then I, like, feed them and stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a literal mouse city. Just as the cities were sort of exploding super hard because of the ability to acquire, like, good labor and factories and shit. And the cities were exploding in this time. A lot of people were afraid of what new urban life might be like. Maybe including this guy, maybe not. Who knows? I can't attest to his mental state. But he was like, what if I made it look like a city, right? And I packed them up like they were rats in a city. Then I could tell... maybe what population density might have to do with, like dwelling and how people sort of live together and behave, right? So what he did was he built the Mouse Utopia. And his experiments did not go well. Not even fucking slightly. And here I'm gonna read a little bit of how he described it.
Okay.
So originally, it was a 101 inch by 101 inch cage. With the mouse, or with the mice, being able to get as much food and water as they needed to support as much as they needed. So you can add, if you needed to add more, he can add more. He dubbed this giant thingy, Universe 25. And what he did was he placed 32 to 56 rodents in the big ass doodad. And he said, hold on. Gotta make sure I'm not fucking this up. And basically what he said is like, go do what you're gonna do, rats. And he was expecting the rats go like, hey, bro, now that we have like more space, because he removed the walls, if you notice, there's like those little walls, but he sort of removed the proper walls or whatever. So he was like, I'm just going to build these housing projects, right, for them to live in. And I'm sorry, yeah. By the way, if you're wondering like the actual proper size, it's 27 meters square, or 2.7 meters square, or 9 feet square, if you're wondering, right? And what he did was instead of having like proper like big fucking walls, he put up like mesh ones so that the rats could see through them. Or these are mice now. And then he gave little tunnels that go across so people could access, nesting boxes, food hoppers, all this other shit. So in the first like year or so, the population exploded up to about 620 by like the end of the first year. Then it didn't explode as hard as it was, but it rapidly dropped in increase, right? Whereas originally it was doubling every 55 days, it started doubling every 145 days. So like almost 1/3 the growth, right? And then what ended up happening was that when the mouse hit about 2,200 mice, right, which was far short of the 3840 mice that it could hold, shit just started getting real fucked, right? Around day 315, shit started going crazy. For example, whenever the females were having babies, they would kick their kids or their babies out of their litters. They would even wound their litters, like permanently scarring and like sort of just fucking up and deforming a lot of the mice that were their kids. And a lot of the more dominant mice were unable to defend their shit, just like in the rat experiments. And generally what happened was the females became extremely aggressive, way more aggressive than they were in the last experiment. And what ended up happening was the males couldn't defend the females that they wanted to defend, right? The dominant males, right? The females were basically killing their children effectively and kicking them out. Like a few of them were surviving, but they were kicking them out. And finally, the non-dominant males were basically just beating the shit out of each other, and they weren't even bothering to fight back. Like they'd be drinking, like a little non-dominant mouse would go over to his like non-dominant square because they sort of like the non-dominant mice sort of fucked off to their own corners. They would be like drinking their water or whatever, and another dude would come up and like bite part of his ear off, like ah, and the other mouse would just be like, all right, yeah, whatever, and they would just let him do it to him. And then also, lots of the non-dominant mice were participating in male-on-male mouse sex, if you will. And by day 600, shit was getting fucked, right? Basically, no more babies were being had, right? The males were just not even attempting to have kids, and they weren't talking to each other and effectively just attacking each other. And they got to the point where all they did, right, the males, they ate, they drank, they slept, and they sort of like made themselves look really nice. And they actually had extremely healthy looking coats. They're basically like Adonis mice, like they were perfect Chad mice, but they just never fucked with anything else, ever. They just basically lived until they died and did nothing else besides eat, drink, and sleep. And they were even called the beautiful ones, right? Because that's what ended up happening. So eventually, because none of these hot-ass mice dudes were having the sex with any of these nice females who were also like attacking their kids to begin with, the rat colony just the mouse colony just fucking super died. And here's where shit gets fucked. So we have this fucked up mouse utopia, universe 25, right? And what this dude, right? I didn't want to go read his book because it's fucking long. What he said was, yeah, all these mice not living in my weird cage, that's literally like humans. Cities are going to literally kill all of humanity. He said that the social breakdown where they stopped like working together as a society was the second death from the Book of Revelations in the Bible, right? And saying that shit like another person, a writer named Bill Perkins, was saying like, yeah, when we're in overcrowdedness and the world is impersonal, eventually we'll fall apart from the family unit or whatever, and all people will die. And effectively what he was saying was, if we have cities and shit, right, and we don't go back to monkey, eventually what will happen is all the dudes will become gay. Every woman will never have children, right? And all of humanity will die. Based on these mouse experiments. What do you guys think about that? By the way, tons of people believed him. Like, he was published and people went fucking insane. They started wiling the fuck out. Like, you think this ivermectin shit is insane? No, this shit was fucking crazy. Homies were losing their minds. Like, we gotta leave the city and protect our kids. And shit like that. But yeah, go ahead.
Now, first impression is that, well, I can't necessarily speak for a mouse or a rat.
Yeah.
If I purely existed within like this little contained universe where all I could do was either sleep, eat, drink, or interact with like another person in like this weird prison, like I think my sanity would drop precipitously.
Yeah? Is that the case? Well,
it's only a guess.
Well, what do you think, Sydney?
I mean, like, I'm kind of on the same board as that. I mean, if you were to do a very similar experiment with humans, it probably would go very similarly, because, I mean, if you only have the option to interact with people, eat or sleep or drink.
Also interaction including fucking.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, you're gonna get bored real fast.
Yeah. So basically, what a lot of people said, and here's a quote. Basically, what a lot of people said was that his shit was fucking stupid. Right?
Yeah.
Like, actual scientists were like, bro, why are you referencing like the the book of Revelations or whatever in your scientific study? You fucking clown, right? And what ended up happening, was that a dude ended up forming an informal group. His name was Leonard Duhl, called the Space Cadets, who discussed the usage of space as a reference to this guy's work, right? And they were like, maybe we should figure out how we should be using space in order to make sure that this doesn't happen, right? But everyone else was like, you guys are fucking stupid, right? Like, you're being very, very dumb. This is literally just animals, right? First of all. And also, your experiment is like, you're basically implanting like human ideals onto rats in the experiment anyway. But the thing I find the most problematic about it is that basically what he was saying was that we should, like I said, go back to monkey. And he was a very conservative man. Mike, I think you know where this is going.
Oh,
He was a very conservative man. He did not like the changing of the old guard, if you will, and the acceptance of new ideas. He ended up actually writing a couple other publications. In 1957, he published a very well-known publication named Social Welfare as a Variable in Population Dynamics. I bet you can't guess what that was about. Mike, you have any ideas what it might have been about?
If I had to guess, it'd be something along the lines of we can't pay people like a UBI or give them free healthcare because it'll literally cause like civilization to collapse.
Literally, yeah. Fun fact: this is actually about around when the UBI was being considered for all Americans. If you're not aware of that, that was a thing that was happening. This is back in that time. But also, there's actually a great picture of him meeting the Pope. Let me get that picture. That I like
eating
a
the
lot.
Pope? I heard it as eating the Pope.
Oh no! He met the Pope, who thanked him for his his like research or whatever the fuck, right? I like how the way that this picture is taken makes it look like the dude in the back who's like looking off to the side is being framed by the two people in the foreground. I don't know what photographer took this, but they're really not that great at their job. It's so weird too, because like somehow people who are like maybe a foot behind the dude in the center are out of focus, but that dude is perfectly in focus. Like you can see every wrinkle of his face, exactly how the shit highlights him and everything, while the two people in the foreground are like overexposed and shit. It's really, really weird.
I also, well, quote unquote, like how it's titled. I think that says a laying on of hands.
Yep.
Yeah.
But one of my things that I think is the most fucked up about this is that basically what he was doing was performing quack science in order to sort of like, I'm not saying that he was necessarily out to do this, but he sure as shit capitalized on it in like the Scientific American or whatever the fuck. And they were like, yeah, bro, look at how these rats went crazy. That means that we need to get out of the cities. If you're aware of the history of a quote white flight and such, this is definitely one of the things that, if not contributed to it, was a symptom of it, where white people were basically fleeing the cities because they were quote unquote too dangerous, or otherwise known as nice black people moved into their neighborhood and white people were scared of them. So basically, what he was saying, right, in these experiments, and what he was like telling people, because you know, like whenever like a quack doctor posts like some type of shit that conforms with like this weird underground like thing that no one gives a shit about, they go on like the talk show circuit and stuff like that. It's much more pronounced today, but he was sort of like one of the first people to do that. And honestly, I think that he's a pioneer in like the sort of scientific grift, if that makes any sense. Because my man went fucking crazy. Like, he was on everything. And I don't know. I just think that, like, first of all, these experiments are, like, just interesting that this dude had them. I don't know. Building, like, a little, like, mouse city has always been just, like, a kind of funny idea to me. But the fact that he tried to, like, use it as, like, a reason to basically cut social welfare and, like, knock people out of the city to make sure that we go back to, like, living an agrarian lifestyle or whatever the fuck. It's just so, like, transparently grifty to me, if that makes any sense. It's the same way with like, and you know, like chiropractors and shit nowadays who like try to write like COVID exemptions and shit for like masks and vaccines, you know what I mean? And I just think like, well, people always like study this as like, oh, look at this interesting study. But I think it's a way better example of how sort of like in the past, there has always been these like super grifter scientists, not necessarily scientists as a whole, but like grifters who will try to use science as a method of like getting across shit. Like you guys know about like flat Earth and shit, right? Yeah, like that one guy who was like, if I fly a plane in a straight line, that means it would fly off of the Earth or whatever if the Earth was round. And I don't know. I just think that like you have to be careful because all this shit has been around for so fucking long, and it's honestly really depressing to see that people are still falling for dumb bullshit like this. You know what I mean? Like that that doctor that Trump had who was like talking about demon semen and shit.
Yeah, well, I think it's less falling for it more than like
using it as a method of
it has sort of like the aesthetic of like, you know, quote unquote real science. Like,
yeah,
it at least seems scientific, and they kind of use that, or they use that as sort of a basis to push a certain kind of ideological narrative, and then that tends to kind of conform with people's existing beliefs and biases, and so they latch onto that really hard. Like no amount of contradictory evidence or like real evidence or disapproval will like dislodge that.
Yeah, I also, by the way, another thing that was like as a result of this was people sort of not invented necessarily, but they sort of like use this as a way to sort of launch the science of proxemics, if you know what that is.
I have not heard of that.
It's basically literally what that dude was saying, but as a science, like as a proper science. So you know how like there's haptics, kinesics, and all that shit. Like, oh, the way somebody's body movement indicates what they're talking about, and that study is kinesics. Well, proxemics is the way people live and how close they are to each other and how that affects their social interaction. But this is like the actual science of it. If you ever heard of like my personal bubble and shit like that, that's actually like a real thing. For example, here's a picture of the scientific personal bubble, if you were ever wondering. So that is sort of like letting... Oh, here, I got a bigger picture of it. This is the levels of personal bubblehood as relating to proxemics. And basically, this dude sort of like hijacked this idea, right? Of like, oh, people being near me affects how I behave, and used it to launch his fucking like mice bullshit. And by the way, he basically rode this until he was dead. Like, let me check really quick, because I think his last publication was in 1983. And it was he was just a contributor in a book with 162 authors. But his last proper publication was in like 1962. And then I bet you can't guess what he did, Mike.
Okay.
What do you do when you become a successful grifter, Mike? What do you think?
Oh boy. Oh god, don't tell me he tried to translate this into some sort of political career.
No, but he did go a little fucking crazy, right? And basically he was one of those people that was like sort of going with the news media to sort of hype up his shit. For example, he was referenced, like his research stuff was referenced in a very fun, because he's from Tennessee, a very fun publication called the Tennessean Magazine. Do you know what the name of that article was, Mike? Bet you can't guess.
No, I can't guess. I too many possibilities, but please tell me.
The Garden of Eden, or Doomsday, by David Lewis, 1971. And then also by Alsop Stewart in Newsweek 96, 1970, August 17th. Dr. Calhoun's Horrible Mousery. You getting a theme here, Mike? Shit went a little fucking crazy. And I don't know, man. I always just hate seeing shit like this exist. Because, like, this dude basically rode this, like, science for such a long period of time. When you have people that, like, make actual, like, proper scientific research. And I'm not saying that, like, his experiment necessarily was a bad one. Because, I don't know, maybe if you'd found out that whenever you're, like, unable to nut as a mouse, you literally go Super Saiyan and escape your enclosure, and we can use that to make people go Super Saiyan. That would have been fucking cool. So, like, obviously, doing the experiment isn't, like, the problem. The problem to me is, like, how people utilize that shit. And I don't know. To me, I've always seen, like, this kind of stuff to be so fucking stupid, but also necessary, if that makes any sense. Because now we have, like, a reference of, like, hack doctors. Like, you know, the vaccine guy who was like, oh, the vaccines cause the autism or whatever. That dude's still
Wakefield.
grifting to this day. I'm sorry?
Yeah, Andrew Wakefield.
Yeah, he's still grifting to this day. You know about that, nerd?
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah, Andrew Wakefield's a fucking piece of shit. Like, he has... It's so sad, too, when you see people, like, at his book signings and shit, like, protesting, like, vaccines and shit. And be like, oh, Mr. Wakefield or whatever, Dr. Wakefield, he's so awesome. He's not a doctor anymore, I don't believe. And all this other shit. And, like, oh, yeah, and they do, like, interviews just like, oh, yeah, my son had this bad shit happen to him, but it's better than taking the vaccine. And I'm like, oh, lady. So that's why, I don't know, man. I feel like you should always try to educate people on this shit. Because it's like, you want to make sure that people understand that whenever somebody uses any type of study to back up, like, their claim, and they only have, like, the one study, it's not, like, great to immediately dismiss them, but, like, you could pretty quickly dismiss their, like, fucking stupid ass claims. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think there's a degree of I don't remember what the phenomenon is called, but there's, like, a degree of, like, pop science that like, we're very quick to hype, like, a sensational kind of, uh like an experimental abstract, like, oh, because this always happens with, like, oh, can drinking wine lower your, chances of getting, like, cancer or whatever.
Yeah.
And, and it's always, if you actually, like, dive into the
My mom's
experiment,
like, yes! Yes!
yeah, if you actually, like, dive into the experiment, it's like, well, we, found that, like, through this, very small, like, test group, that there's, like, a maybe, like a slightly appreciable, like, statistical difference where, having wine could contribute to, less of a risk of cancer, but it's always treated as, like, just down that shit and you'll live forever.
Well, that's one of the grifters' like main tools. Actually, nerd, do you know what the ship of Theseus is?
No.
Okay. The ship of Theseus is the idea that, like, let's say I have a ship named Theseus, right? And I buy it all new, all in one piece, right? And then eventually a piece of it breaks and I had to replace it, right? And that keeps happening over the course of, like, a long time until eventually I replace the whole ship. Like, the whole ship is completely new. But unbeknownst to me, some type of goblin motherfucker has, like, gone behind me and taken all of my broken pieces of my ship out of the trash after I've thrown them away. And he's used them to make an entirely new ship, right? Is the ship he makes out of his old broken parts, because it's all my original parts, right? Is that Theseus, or is my ship Theseus? You get the idea?
Yeah.
Well, what happens is, with a lot of grifters, right? And this is very important, especially with how headlines work, like, nowadays. Is and shout outs to fucking Innuendo Studios. They have a great video on this. So what they do is they use a sort of, like, phrasical / political ship of Theseus, right? Let's say I have a headline that says vaccines cause autism, right? Or vaccines can cause... No, I'll just say vaccines cause autism, right? Let's break that down. So vaccines, as in any vaccine, but more specifically, whatever vaccine that fucking dude... What was his name? Wakefield?
Yeah.
Whatever vaccine that dude at Wakefield was saying, this vaccine, right? And then when they say cause autism, we mean that we think it causes autism because, the way that he got evidence of that was by, if you didn't know about that, nerd, what ended up happening was Mr. Wakefield had a bunch of people who he was like, hey, does your kid have autism or whatever? Call me, right? And then he talked to their parents. He didn't do any studies on the child. He just talked to their parents, and he was like, yeah, so, like, when did you start noticing they had autism or whatever, or something like that? And he was like, all right, now when did they get the vaccine? And then they would just ask the parents all this shit without checking. And then he would compile all this data. It was like, yep, the parents said that he started having autism after the vaccine, right? Which means that it totally means that they all got it from the vaccine, right? So then he changes that into it causes autism. So what the headline should really say, if it was being like quote unquote truthful, was that one doctor from one study who asked parents if their kids got autism from the vaccine, and the parents said yes. You get what I mean? But that's not snappy and it's not sensationalized, right? So instead, they sort of take all the pieces of that argument and they take it away. Like, they take all the pieces of that sentence away and replace them with new ones where, like, this specific vaccine this doctor is studying is replaced by the word vaccine. And cause is replaced by we asked them a bunch of shit, right? So vaccines cause. And then autism is replaced by like, oh, he kind of always just had autism, but we were just denying it. We want a reason to blame our child being not neurotypical on like the government or some shit. You see what I mean? That's like the sort of like phrasical or like political ship of Theseus, right? And it's like really important that I think people know about that shit because it's so fucking stupid. It's the same thing with this guy. He says like, oh, humanity is fucked because if we're living too close, or how do I put this? Cities make people mean. By cities, he means a cage that looks like a city. By people, he means rats or mice. And by makes them like fucking destroy themselves, he means that they act different or whatever. So it's like, it doesn't actually mean anything he says it means or any of the articles say. It really means that he's just trying to fucking imprint some bullshit on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like the real extrapolation would be like, I took a bunch of people and I locked them in like a sensory deprivation room where all they could do is eat fuck.
Yeah.
And it turned out they got some sort of. It turns out they degraded in sanity pretty quickly.
Also, Nerd, you got like some weird feedback on your mic. I don't know what's that all about.
I have no clue.
It's gone now. Weird. But yeah. So on a more fun note, I have a question for you, Nerd. So on your Twitch streams, right? You've heard about this. I say somewhat recent, but I've been told it's always been a problem. You've heard about these like hate raids and shit, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I meant to ask you this a while ago, but I felt like it'd be better to ask you on the show. Have you been experiencing that? Like, what's your take on that? I'd love to know.
Okay, so I personally have not gotten them. I've been very, very lucky. I got followed by several of the accounts that were a problem, but I never got hit by them, whether offline or online. But Twitch just came out with an update.
Oh.
So yeah, they're actually doing something about it.
Interesting.
Yeah. After we had a whole day off Twitch, which a lot of the smaller streamers didn't take off. We just streamed and did like awareness for it because, you know, the bigger streamers can take a day off. A lot of the smaller streamers can't.
Yeah.
But several of the smaller streamers that I work with and I know, they have gotten hit with them because it's been an issue when people are offline. The accounts come into the chat and just spam it with, you know, really shitty stuff. And Twitch holds people responsible for what happens in the chat, even if they're not online.
Yeah.
Which is really dumb. So now the update that Twitch just came out with, you can require, it used to be that you could force anybody in your chat to have an email verified.
Yeah.
And then you have emote only mode, follower only mode, and sub only mode. Those were your only options.
Yeah.
Now you have email verification option. You also have a cell phone verification option. Ooh. And you can like there's timing windows for like if the account has existed longer than like 2 weeks, then it doesn't have to be verified. That kind of a thing.
Interesting. So
yeah.
Are you happy with their changes?
It's a start.
Is there anything that you'd want to see out of them that they haven't already addressed?
I mean,
or if you'd like them to address it in a different way.
I mean, what we got or what we have gotten so far is good. It should have always been an option, in my opinion, the way that the verification options are for the chat. But the fact that people are being held responsible for what happens in the chat when we're not online, I think is a really big issue, because we don't have the option to turn off chat. We can put it into emote only mode, but that is a whole command or going into your console. And when you're ending streams and you're trying to outro and raid, then also switch your chat. If you're trying to switch to something else too, that's a whole process.
Yeah, and also, like, if you have to put it in emote only mode, doesn't that like ruin your engagement with your actual like followers and your fans and stuff?
Yeah, well, and it can if you forget to switch it back, because you can turn it in emo only mode whenever you're offline, so that if somebody tries to come in and spam it when you're offline, all they can do is spam them emotes. But then whenever you're online, if you don't if you're a smaller streamer and you have to put it into follower only mode, that can get really frustrating, because you have people that just drift in and out because Twitch's discovery feature is so shitty. Like, probably 60% of the people that come through my streams aren't following me.
Yeah.
Most of the people end up following me by the time that they drift out, but usually they're talking in chat before they end up following me. So if I have to put it into follower only mode,
Yeah.
they're probably just going to drift in and drift right back out.
Yeah, well, I've always noticed that, and I think this is true of a lot of platforms. I think the only one that's not really like this necessarily, but that might be just because of the format, is TikTok. But a lot of platforms sort of function as like discoverability pyramid schemes, if that makes
Yeah.
any sense, where there's no sort of delineation between, if I'm following like 3 people, the most popular of those 3 people is the person I'm going to see first out of all my followings. And
Yep.
then, depending on sort of like who's online at the time, I might even see other popular people that I'm not following before I see unpopular people that I am following. Have you noticed that to be something similar that you've experienced?
Yeah, absolutely. I know a lot more how the YouTube algorithm works than how the Twitch algorithm works, which is really dumb considering that I only use YouTube for VODs.
Yeah.
I've just worked with YouTube a lot longer. But I know that Twitch's algorithm works fairly similarly, in that if you can get somebody that is a fair amount larger than you to collaborate with you, then they're going to pull people to you. And if you can get a network of like 5 people and everybody all interconnects themselves, everybody's going to pull themselves up.
Yeah.
And it also, if you can get affiliated and do squad streams, that is one of your best ways to get the discovery feature to help you. But getting to affiliate can be very difficult. Like, I've been sitting with one of my affiliate like brackets not filled for like 2 months, I think.
And could you explain a little bit of that for the audience?
Yeah, so to reach affiliate, you have to have a couple of markers met. I'm gonna open my Twitch here so that I don't screw up numbers.
Hey, go ahead.
So in order to reach affiliate, you have to reach 50 followers, stream for 8 hours in a 30-day period, stream on 7 different days in that same 30-day period, and then average 3 viewers.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you are consistent, then sometimes, depending on what type of content you make, if you do games or you do music, which music on Twitch is a whole fucking mess.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, and they've made a deal with somebody so that music can kind of be a thing on Twitch now.
MGM.
No,
yeah,
I don't
it wasn't. It was was it Universal Music Group?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I think that's who it was.
Right,
So I
you were saying?
remember getting the email. Um, anyway, if you're consistent and you're playing very popular games, like if you're in some of the largest brackets of games, you can hit that fairly quickly within a couple of months.
Mhm.
But if you're playing lesser known games or like story games, that kind of a thing, it's gonna take a long time.
Yeah, I'm
And
sorry.
the more inconsistent you are, the harder it's gonna be. And I ended up hitting all of the markers except for the average, which is the hardest one to hit. And so my average has just been sitting there for
Yeah,
like
that
a couple
that's
of months.
that's kind of what I mean. Where it's like the only way to gain average viewers is to have average viewers, which is like a little fucking stupid. That's why like I don't give a shit about Twitch. Like I think streaming could be fun, but I probably wouldn't do it like normally. It's just not something
Mhm.
I would want to do. Mainly because I like producing content as opposed to like how do I put this? When I say produce, I don't mean create. I mean like as in it is a production. If that makes
Yeah.
any sense, something that I actively go through and I sort of make it the way I want it to be. I'm not saying that like streaming is not necessarily that way, but you have less control over it. And I don't think that like I'm an interactable enough person to want to speak with those people, right?
Yeah.
So this is coming from somebody who doesn't have a ton of interest in it. But I will say, the thing that my fucking problem with Twitch is, just in general, and like creators trying to, fucking be successful on there, is that typically a person who has an audience outside of Twitch can become affiliated, like, even if they have a tiny ass audience, like 20 times faster than somebody who's just on Twitch, like normally and busting their ass, which I think is
Oh yeah.
so fucking stupid. Like, the way they sort of do their content is they want to push the people who are the most popular up front when, like, that doesn't really seem necessary, if that makes any sense. Because from what I'm always
Yeah.
seeing is that when you get on Twitch, typically how it works is it's like the most popular shit on the top. Off on the side is like sort of who you're following and if they're live or not, right?
Yep.
But to get to like on the home screen, to get to like who you're following, you have to like go down below a bunch of shit. So what'll happen is if there's like a more popular person that's like playing a game you want to see or whatever, they'll typically be, even if you're not following them, above, like way above, and like above what the people you're actually following who aren't popular. Like you'll even go
Hmm.
through, like you'll hit the category section before you hit the like less popular people that you're following, if that makes any sense. And I just
Yeah.
think it's so fucking stupid because like they want more creators to be like popular on there, right? But because of the way Twitch works, and since you can only watch like one stream at a time, it ends up happening that like the successful streamers are extremely successful. So what ends up happening on Twitch is there becomes like a meta, right? Where what happens is the most popular thing is what you kind of have to be doing to be successful at all times, unless you're already popular. And even then, you're going to be doing the most popular thing typically, right? Because, you want to be part of like the experience that everyone's having, right? That's why like Twitch is just so fucked, because if you're trying to be successful on there, you either have to A, have enough clout to already be successful, like on somewhere else. B, know people who have clout who will like basically lend you temporary clout loans or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Or C, you have to just fucking grind and grind and grind after the most popular thing for as long as you can until eventually you hit a break and get enough of an audience that wants to come back actively that they're willing to ignore the bigger people and come watch you specifically, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's so fucking silly. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and I have another gripe that's specifically like goes toward averages and viewer counts and stuff.
Yeah.
If you mute a stream, completely mute it, it doesn't count toward viewers.
Yeah.
It'll show like if you like click to see who's in the that person is sitting in chat, but it doesn't count toward your viewer numbers, it doesn't count toward your averages, nothing. It's essentially like they don't even have that tab open.
Mm-hmm. It's like, in my opinion, Twitch is like, this is one of the things that I just don't like, right? This is kind of why I prefer, like I said, producing content. Like on YouTube, engagement is the number of likes. As long as people are watching your content, like making sure they're watching all of it. And then, like, on top of that, commenting and engaging with it, right? With Twitch, since it's an active broadcasting sort of platform, the only two ways they know about engagement, right? Well, besides like the meta stuff like following and things like that, is if A, you have the volume controls, whatever your volume controls are, and B, if they're typing in chat, right? So because it's only got two metrics that you can check, and they're either on or off. You either have the volume on or you have it off. You know what I mean? Because they don't care what the volume is besides that, on or off, right? And then you're either typing in chat or you're not. Whereas on YouTube, you have levels to it. Like somebody might watch half of your videos every time, right, and get bored halfway through. That's different than, like, that's still engagement, and YouTube's like sort of algorithm and like discoverability rewards at least partial credit, if that makes any sense, right?
Well, yeah,
like the
because it
robot
counts your
overlords.
click-through rates.
Yeah, and stuff like that. But it's like on Twitch, you just can't get fucking discovered because the only way to like get discoverability and to get promoted by like the algorithm on Twitch is to already sort of be successful in a way that it wants you to be successful. Even if somebody's like looking at your stream, if they're not doing those two things, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, it has to be the only thing they're doing is watching your stream, which is like, I don't know, it's just fucking stupid.
Yeah, it's really frustrating, and like, some of the most frustrating things can be that you can have something really good going with a bunch of small streamers and build a relatively steady community, even if you've only got, less than 100 followers for each of those streamers. And the algorithm's still going to fuck you over.
Yeah.
Because, none of you have a whole lot. Even if it's good content and you're consistent and everything like that, the algorithm's still going to go, no.
Yeah.
I don't like you.
Yeah, it's so fucking stupid. And the other thing I think about Twitch, and this is the reason I would never try to make a career off Twitch, right? Not because like I think it's shit or whatever, but because Twitch is literally the attention economy and it's nothing else, right? So what ends up happening with Twitch is if I have a YouTube channel, right, and I make one fucking banger ass video, right, that somehow gets blessed and a bunch of people watch it, and they click through my other content, that's just the same as if they had clicked it right when I published it. Like, all my backlog is going to sort of like boost every single part of my channel. That's why one of the important things on YouTube is having a backlog of good catalog of content that people can watch if they discover you, because then all your videos get views. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to go through all your shit. But with Twitch, it's different. If they come to watch your stream one day, they're typically going to watch your stream and then come back later. They're not going to go through your VODs and shit. And for the most part, Twitch doesn't give a shit if people are viewing your VODs. Like, they sort of do, but not really, if that makes any sense. So, the only thing that matters to Twitch is if in the moment you're getting views consistently. Whereas, like, even if you make an insane amount of good content, right, and then somebody pops in on a day where you have some good content, it's as if you only made one good piece of content instead of two. And then take that and multiply that by months and months and months. And you maybe, let's say you had like, out of 3 months, you had like 10 streams that were fucking absolute bangers. And on the 11th banger stream, somebody finds you and like, oh, this is good shit. No one's going to watch your VODs. And even if they do, like, they're not going to go back through your VODs to check for bangers. Even if they do, you don't get rewarded. Even though you're bringing sort of like views to Twitch's platform, you don't get actively rewarded for it. Like, it doesn't result in additional sort of it's not a real good term for it, but like clout, if that makes any sense. Not more discoverability. So even if your group is consistent, they have to be consistent and already be getting viewers in order to like sort of gain the consistency needed to succeed on Twitch. You know what I mean?
Yep, exactly.
And it's just, I think, I don't know. Twitch is fucked. I don't like to participate in it. And then add on top of it like the hate raid bullshit, and it just becomes fucked. Mark,
yeah.
you?
I mean, like,
yeah, I'm sorry.
I mean, I love Twitch for what it is, because I I like the interactability part of it, but there's so many pieces of it that just don't work well.
Yeah. And Mike, are you like a Twitch boy? I don't think so.
Um, not super. I have a few channels that I follow and like a handful that I am like subscribed to. But I don't like regularly participate. And like I almost never like type in chat.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Just because I don't know.
you're a
It's just
ghost
not
in the
something.
machine.
What?
You're a ghost in the machine.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's sort of a weird. Uh, my opinion on this is sort of weird in that like, and like a certain degree, I get it. Like it's at least with the issues with. It's not like YouTube or Twitch or any of these sort of content platforms are going to be able to cater to everybody, to all of the content creators on it. But on the other hand, like they tend to treat those people like dog shit a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Except for like their golden geese, so to speak, the cream of the crop. And I mean not even that, because they'll even like protect um like I would argue really horrendous people, but just because those people attract other really horrendous people who watch their content consistently. So it's a real like and then, you know, and their companies, their bottom line is just how much money they're able to pull in, and so they're going to prioritize whatever metrics, you know, apply to that. And you know, they're gonna you know, help out, you know, the underdogs, you know, kicking and screaming until like the last possible moment. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I guess that's sort of all I have to say on that.
Yeah, Twitch is weird in that, like, until somewhat recently, it's been the fucking Wild West. I think only recently has it, like, really gotten to a place where it's, like, extremely established, like, who the top streamers are, what they're doing, right? And, like, the sort of, like I said earlier, like, the fucking train. In any case, so like only recently has it become like really established, and because of its established like nature, the other thing is that like they're starting to implement like more rules and shit, because like back in the day, I'm not saying like old ass times, but like for a while, Twitch has always been like, yeah bro, just moderate your shit, you'll be fine. And then like if you even get them to speak with you, like typically Twitch just never responds to anything. And like for example, the last controversy that I remember, like, or one of the first controversies I remember being like a really big deal, was what's her fucking name? Alinity like fucking threw her cat or whatever, right? Or like fed her cat vodka and shit, right? That's the last time. That's the first time I remember there being like actual controversy, because even though people were like doing fucking terrible shit on there, it wasn't big enough for it to like matter, and all the admins on it were fucking like, either they did literally nothing or they enforced their rules like a bunch of fucking wackos, and they just like randomly fucking hit people with bullshit. You know what I mean? So I think like nowadays there's actual progress, but I still don't think that like Twitch is close to being like, how do I put this, like a respectable platform, because the only thing that makes the platform respectable is the people on it doing good shit. But otherwise it's just like, yeah, I don't know, man, like it's fucked.
Well, I think what kind of happened is over the pandemic and in quarantine, there were a lot of people that were like, well, I've kind of always wanted to do this and I'm stuck in my house, so might as well. And then, you know, people started blowing up, and then there's the slew of children that got, you know, Dream took under his wing and was like, let's play Minecraft, children. And now
honestly, man, I really, really, really don't like that shit. Like,
I have opinions.
Yeah, go off. Yeah, what's up? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so one, I think he's a horrible person.
I don't know enough about him. I just know that he's like duplicitous. Like And by that I mean, like, he has, like, this is kind of funny. As his icon wears a mask, he has, like, a bunch of different, like, sort of faces that he sort of presents to people. And because, like, almost all his followers are, like, literal just, like, kids and shit, they don't, like, understand that they're literally just being manipulated, or they just kind of forgive it and not understand that that's, like, really bad to be promoting that kind of shit. Like, I remember when he got caught for the cheating shit, I'm like, bro, like, you're trying to say, like, all this, like, this stupid shit, but you're, like, literally dead to rights. It's fucking... Well, and he was, like, getting his lawyer and shit. I was like, what the fuck, dude? Like, you got caught. Just, like, okay, I don't like Darkside Phil. Let me make that very clear before I say this. But when he got, like, literally, like, he jacked off, like, on stream, right? Even his response was just like, LeMayo, I guess I'm a fucking dipshit. I could at least respect that he's not, like, saying, I didn't do that. You know what I mean? Like, he definitely did it. Everyone knows he did it. And he's just like, yeah, I did it. My bad, or whatever, right? But, like, that's because he already gets enough shit, I feel, that people will actually hold him to account. With Dream, he's got, like, this fucking, and to a greater extent, like, Minecraft stan tubers, or whatever the fuck, right? Stan streamers. They have, like, this godlike status to their fucking, like, followers or whatever, who hype them up like fucking crazy, that, like, they have to maintain it at any cost. And by that, they're basically, like, sort of teaching these, and I say kids, I mean, like, 15-year-olds and shit. I'm not talking, like,
no,
they're not, like,
okay,
like
so
older
they
high
say,
schoolers. Yeah, sorry?
Well, they say that the range of, like, viewership is, like, 13 to 15. I'm like, no, it's, like, 8 to 15.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. These are not, like, high schooler kids. Like, high school kids don't fuck with Minecraft YouTubers for the most part, right?
Most of them are the Minecraft YouTubers.
That's the point, right? But it's like, you're, like, literally teaching these kids, because these fucking kids, like, I'm not calling them stupid, but they literally don't have full-ass brains, bro.
No,
like,
they don't!
They're, like, actual, like, underdeveloped little, like, babies and shit, and you're trying to, like, yeah, no, I didn't lie. And they're like, why didn't you lie? 'Cause I'm Dream, bitch, or whatever. You know, shit like that.
Exactly.
And it's just so fucked up to be teaching kids, like, oh, yes, worship me. And, like, promoting, like, dude, I look at his Twitter occasionally just to see what kind of fuck shit is going on over there. Because lots of, like, kids use Twitter, right? Especially Minecraft kids, right? Which I think they should definitely not be allowed to do, right? I think you have to at least be, like, I don't know, able to drive a car, because at least then you have another method of, like, ruining your life. So it's not like Twitter's your exclusive method. Well, you know what I mean. It's like, if I can drive a car and I can legally commit manslaughter, or like manslaughter with my fucking giant vehicle, then I think I'm like capable of fucking my life up on Twitter. You know what I mean? I'm not, like, saying you have to be 18 or whatever. I think I'm responsible
enough to ruin my social life.
Yeah, but, like, if you're fucking 8, you're 12 and shit, like, get the fuck off Twitter.
And I think the legal age for Twitter is 13.
Yeah, but look,
and then you've got, like, 8-year-olds out on Twitter, and I'm like, the fuck are you doing here?
Yeah, it's so awful. I won't say I hate them, but goddamn, are they just, like, one of the worst fucking things? So 2 things I really, really hate. Is celebrity worship. And by that I mean seeing them as people who could do no good. Technically it's 3 things. The other side of the celebrity worship is, like, the celebrities who take advantage of parasocial relationships and make these kids literally think that they're your friend. Like, they play into it. I understand that, like, a lot of people can't actually control that. Like, you literally can't be like, there's a lot of people who are like, yeah, bro, just remember, we are not friends. Like, I'm glad you're part of the community or whatever, but I don't actually know you, right? And there's no way you could actually know me. So remember, we're not friends. I'll entertain you, but we're not friends. Whereas,
it's, like, one of those, like, I love you. I am so glad that you enjoy my content, but I do not actually know you. Yeah. I have no idea who you are. So please respect that.
It's like listening to fucking Kanye's music and be like, yeah, bro, Kanye's my friend. Or who is that guy, FouseyTube, when he was like, me and Drake, we're literally friends. Or whatever the fuck. Were you guys not around for that? Oh, that was fucked. He was having, whatever. We won't get into it. But in any case, I just don't like that how they play into it. Like, they're literally brainwashing kids to create their own cult of personality, right? Where they can do no wrong. And I mean, I get it. The money, right? I get it. But like, holy fuck, guy. Like, do you not understand what you're doing? And I don't know a lot of them, to be fair. I'm not super familiar with the fucking like Minecraft stand people. But like, I know Dream specifically is a pretty dog shit person. Another person I know who has this same type of following, but I don't know much about them, is that corpse guy. You know who I'm talking about?
Yes, and I don't know a whole lot about him.
Yeah,
either.
me neither. I think like young ass girls like him because they think he's like hot or something. I don't know what his thing is, right?
Yeah.
And he like raps about fucking like demon bitches or some shit, if I remember correctly. But it's like, I don't actually know what else he does besides that. I know he plays Minecraft.
I have no idea. I know that he's played Among Us. I think it was with Jacksepticeye maybe or something, and I saw a video with that and I was like, who is this person?
But yeah, it's like, even then, like, people fucking put them up on these pedestals and shit. I think that's a problem, but I also think it's a problem to like promote it. And the other thing is that, like, this is the third thing, I just fucking hate when people hit you with the fake shit. That annoys me so fucking much. That's literally the reason I can't work retail. Like, I tried it once, and it's not necessarily like the doing shit, but it's so much emotional labor to be like, yes, I care about what you're saying to me, and I'm being friendly to you because I want you to think I'm your friend, if that makes any sense. And that's literally what a lot of these people do, but over the internet. And I imagine there's some, like, they have to do the emotional labor of, like, basically, like, running an online daycare, right? But also, like, I mean, literally. But they're, like, running an online daycare, right? But also on top of that, they're, like, how do I put this? They front so fucking hard in every aspect of their online presence. That's why I prefer, like, the podcasting format. Because I don't have to, like, be someone else, if that makes any sense. Because I think, like, oh, I'm this cool, entertaining guy. It's just not, I'm not like that most of the time. You know what I mean? Like, I like to fuck around, and I like to do, not that way. I like to, like, make jokes and shit. And you can ask Mike. I harass Mike with the bits. Like, my bits per minute is fucking insane. It's legitimately obscene. Mike, how many bits do I hit you with within, like, a 10-minute period, Mike?
Like, I don't know, like, it's impenetrable. Like, I can't, like, it's so indecipherable now. Like, our bits are so, like, many layers deep that I can't even sort them out.
But yeah, it's like, that I'm like that sometimes. I'm not like that all the time. And I feel like by presenting themselves as, how do I put this? Like, not just entertainers, but great, awesome, funny people all the fucking time, is just so disingenuous and shitty. Because then these fucking kids go out and they try to like that's not how the world is. You know what I mean? These kids go out and they're like, oh, everyone's like this. And then they find out, oh, no one's actually like that. And they're like, instead of thinking, oh, because that's how the world is, kids are fucking stupid. So what they think instead is they think, oh, the people near me are just shitty. There are people out there that are always funny and always my friend, but the only place they are is on Twitch doing or on YouTube doing Minecraft. You know what I mean?
Or just on the internet in general.
Exactly. So then the internet becomes like their only, I won't say their only, but like their primary means of like relationships that aren't even fucking real. You know, it's so fucked up. Like, that's another thing. Like, I don't think that shit like maid cafes and stuff like that, like in Japan and shit, are like problematic, because there's an understanding that those people are not literally your friend, like, and shit like that. You know, like, you understand on some level that they're not your friend, right, or whatever, or that they like, if it's like a maid cafe or so, like Hooters or some shit, they don't actually like you. You're like, everyone.
It's like, this is retail.
Yeah, everyone, they're selling you that they like you.
Yeah,
right?
it's their job.
And you're buying it knowing that they don't like you, right? But you want to feel like they do. That's the only reason you're there, right? But with the internet and how it works, people present themselves as if, yes, this is literally me, and I like you. Yes, you in particular. And if no one acts like I do, that's because they're not a good person. You should only spend your time hanging out with me and my friends on Minecraft or whatever, right? Even though you'll never meet me, you'll never talk to me, and the only way you know I exist is by me sort of like and fluffing up your ego on your Twitter that you made when you were 8 years old and shit like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I fucking hate that so much. Like I promise anyone, like, and you could fucking clip this in like 20 years or whatever, right? I promise anyone that, like, if I start being a fake piece of shit, and I don't mean like playing up a character or something, I mean like actively acting like I'm a way that I'm not. Like, feel free to check my vibe and like tell me how fucking dog shit I am and how I'm a hypocrite. Because that shit's just so fucking bullshit. Like I said, when I used to work at like Best Buy and I would sell fucking computers, dude, I cannot tell you how difficult it is for me to hide my apathy. I am not like, I can act, if that makes any sense. Like, I can put on a front, but doing it consistently on shit that I just do not fucking care about is like impossible. It's so hard for me. People would legitimately, I think, like, because I would say all the shit I was supposed to in the tone I was supposed to, right? But I don't know what my face looks like, but I imagine the way they were looking back at me, that I must have been just staring at them deadpan while saying all this like nice shit to them. And I don't know, man. It's so fucking, I can't handle like the cognitive dissonance of being nice to people who I don't give two fucking like squirts of piss about. You know what I mean? Because it's not like I hate people. It's just like, I don't know you, if that makes any sense. And like, you don't know me, so I don't expect you to be like, to like think I'm your friend and shit. I don't know. You have any thoughts on this, nerd?
I mean, like, whenever I first started Twitch, I kind of, me and one of my friends that I started streaming with, like, we are not going to be super fake pieces of shit about this. And I don't even think I have the VODs from the very beginning. But we were like, we are going to do this the legit way. And so I tend to be a lot more bombastic depending on who I'm streaming with. But I mean, I'm still the same way that I am normally. I just scream a lot more.
Yeah, I feel that.
And like, I worked in customer service for 3 years. I was a bank teller. So I completely get the, I really don't give a shit about you. Please leave. Like, I remember waiting on some customers and I just like fucking hated their guts. And it was a struggle to not show that.
Mm-hmm.
And, smile, customer service. And it's like, I don't want to lose my job today.
Yeah, the worst one too is like the privileged fuckheads who are like, oh, I know that, like, well, because they're like usually like middle class people and they just want to feel superior, right? They're like, I know that you know that I know that you are having a fucking terrible time talking to me, but I'm gonna make goddamn sure that you're as nice to me as possible. You know what I mean? It's like, they'll like try to have conversations with you and shit, but in a way that they're fucking with you. Does that make sense? They'll be like, oh yeah, so you like working here?
Oh.
Shit like that. And they're like, oh yeah, you must have a lot of fun around here. It's like, well, yeah, It's like, oh, don't be like that or whatever. And I'm like, wow, you're making this real fucking hard, buddy. Holy shit. You know what I mean? Like, they know. They know you know, and you know that they know that you know. You know what I mean? So I fucking hate those people so much. And that's kind of like, those people I hate. I hate the fucking like for example, Dream is just the best example I can hate people who also do that, but online. It's like, Dream knows that his fans don't know that he knows. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So like, he abuses that to sort of like play himself up as this fucking like unattainable god, and it's so fucking stupid. I don't know. That shit pisses me off. Mike, you have any takes on this? You hate Minecraft YouTubers?
Well, I mean, granted, I'm not a streamer and I don't do like a lot of online content of any sort, so I can't necessarily speak from experience. But
you're a water baron.
I have more pressing issues to concern myself with. But my take on this is that I think even if you you don't adopt a persona or sort of a kind of front facing kind of character, if you will. That there is like a sort of difference in like your streaming presence and your not streaming presence, that like you kind of, whether you are conscious of it or not, you kind of act just sort of slightly differently in each situation. um but like I get that the more extreme kind of or rather what I'm trying to say is that like when you interact with a content producer like that, you're only seeing them in like a certain sort of slice of their life, so to speak. You're not seeing them how they are outside of a stream, when they're just sort of a regular person.
Yeah.
And that kind of lack of context produces a kind of weird expectation, especially with younger viewers who are not maybe as sort of world wise or knowledgeable of sort of this kind of experience, who kind of only see that particular slice of a person, and they kind of stretch that to be their sort of all-encompassing personality, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I imagine that we're in a very interesting time where we kind of have this sort of I don't know if you want to call it like a psychological kind of imperative like happening in real time, where we see this kind of parasocial relationships with people you have never met, will probably never meet, and are like thousands of miles away from you in sort of a way that's like never happened before in human history. So I don't know.
Yeah. So, by the way, when you're talking about like, I get what you mean. Where you're saying that they act different on stream than they would otherwise. Like that makes sense. What I'm talking about, Mike, is like, okay.
No, I understand that you're saying that like they're intentionally presenting their sort of persona and using it as a means to kind of disarm their viewer.
Not even just that. They also like build their persona as their audience demands it. Does that make sense? So for a great example, I don't know shit about Dream as a person, right? But like one thing he does do is he sort of like plays into the, is he like LGBTQ plus or whatever, like, and shit like he plays into all that shit because his fans want to think about him that way, so he plays into it. Like for example, I don't know about Dream, but it just fucking, it reeks of corporate messaging to me. Here's one of his tweets from May 31st. Pride Month should be every month. So even though it's a little early, happy Pride Month. Love to any LGBTQ plus member or every community, I'm sorry. Will always have me in your corner. You're valid, accepted, and welcome, no matter who you are. Love you all. Now that's a fine message. I can agree with the statement behind it. But because of his history, how he acts, and how he promotes his like fan base, his fan base wants him to promote those values, right? So even though he doesn't give, I don't know, he might, 2 squirts of piss about a particular thing, right? He'll like immediately fucking like jump onto it and use it to sort of push forward himself in the eyes of his like, and sort of like put himself even higher up on the pedestal in the eyes of his viewers and shit. And I just think that that's so fucking awful. Does that make sense? It's like all these fucking, and there's a lot of people like this. There's a lot of kids and shit, especially on Twitter, because where a lot of this Minecraft shit happens. There's a lot of kids and shit who are like performatively queer, just to be like part of that community, even though they don't have to do any of that shit. You get what I mean? Like he doesn't have to like do like allyship and shit and like be like and play into the like the, how do I put it, like not the rumor mill, but like the sort of like, what do you call it, speculation on his identity and shit. He plays into it in a way that is like performative. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get it. It's very like, even though I hate the fucking term, the kind very sort of like woke capitalism.
I mean, yeah, put your fucking pride flag on your fucking Raytheon missile kind of shit.
Yeah. You intentionally sort of do a sort of front-facing
Oh, I heard. Oh, it's a woman dropping the bombs on us this time, buddies. You know, that kind of shit. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a very sort of I can't like come up with the phrasing I want to eat. Like it's a sort of very front facing, yeah, sort of performative gesture, even though you aren't making any sort of. It's kind of a kind of it's that meme of the like drowning hand and the other hand coming down to high five it, and then like as the other
Yes.
hand continues to drown. I don't know. That's the only way I can like contextualize what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Another thing he does. Dream gay baits. He has a history of doing it, like a lot. And I don't know, man. I feel like that's just really fucked. Does that make sense?
Yes.
For example, yeah, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, coming from somebody that is in the queer community,
Yeah.
it makes me very fucking angry.
Mm-hmm.
And
See-
that whole SMP that he does, there are a couple of people, because you know it's a whole roleplay SMP and there's lots of lore and stuff, and there are several people within the lore and roleplay and stuff that do, like, their characters in the roleplay are queer, even though they themselves may not be out or whatever. And they, like, I can think of two people, Tubbo and Randu, their characters get married in roleplay lore.
Okay.
And they're just friends, like, as people. And I remember the children of the fandom flipping the fuck out and are like, they're together.
Yes.
You know? And
it's
like,
well documented that children cannot differentiate between reality and media. They can't do it. That's why back like He-Man and shit and Transformers got so much regulation, because they would literally think that Optimus Prime was dead in real life if he died in the show and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like, and he thought that they were really helping, like, you know, it's like, what's that shit? Like when you see it's like, oh, what was it? Jake Paul did that shit where it was like, or Logan Paul, one of the fucking Paul brothers, like, oh, we've been kidnapped by clowns. All their like child viewers literally thought they were kidnapped. So like when they do like that performatively like queer stuff, it's like, because of their audience, you know, it's, I won't say dangerous. How do I put this? It's not right in my opinion, especially when they play into it so much. But yeah, I'm sorry, nerd. Go ahead.
no, you're fine.
You were saying something though?
I have no idea.
Oh, Christ, I'm sorry.
Train of thought gone.
I'm sorry.
Well, I was gonna say, yeah, it does sort of smack of it's like stolen valor, essentially.
Yeah, well,
yeah,
like, I'm pretty positive that like Dream is cishet white male. Like, so when he does like the performatively like queer stuff, it's like, ah, yes, I see. You're trying to tap into a community that you don't like. No, I'm not gonna say don't belong to, but like you're not really a part of, besides being an ally, but you're sort of inserting yourself into it. Is that what you're kind of talking about?
Well, no, I mean, like, no matter like how he identifies, like since you know the queer community, the LGBTQ plus community has had a very sort of historically bad time, you know, kind of around the world.
Yeah.
And that this is sort of stuff that has either been like you could very only be very careful about like who you sort of experience this with, or you know, where you could sort of not have to put up the kind of fake you, essentially, where you could be sort of yourself, and that, you know, and that there's been sort of lots of historical persecution, and anyway is what I'm trying to say. But that so now that like that has sort of not disappeared, but like has sort of more societal acceptance, at least here in the US.
The zeitgeist is different, if you will.
Yes. That like, you know, people are, you know, the interest in being sort of out and like amongst sort of like-minded people in that kind of sphere, I guess presents the opportunity that like people could sort of abuse that kind of history as a way to sort of garner a certain reaction and attention. Which I have no idea if I made that sound intelligible at all. But
I get what you mean. It's kind of like you're saying that, like, now that it's no longer like non-profitable to be queer,
yes,
all these fucking people are co-opting it as part of their, like, even if just performatively, their identity in order to get, like, brownie points effectively.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's
and by extension, money.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Go off.
I mean, there are a lot of people that have done that, and there's a lot of people that still don't come out because they have been established for so long, and they are afraid to lose the people that they have.
Mm-hmm.
Because while it's not as stigmatized as it used to be, it still isn't as readily accepted in some places as it is in others.
Yeah.
So, like, with all of my stuff, I am very queer. I made that very, very evident when I started. It is in all of my bios. Most of my friends that I stream with are queer. And, like, I had a whole stream that was mostly what we talked about, was, like, history and shit.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's not something that I am going to hide in my content, but I know there are several YouTubers that have been doing stuff for 10 plus years now that have just come out within, like, the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Because when they started and up until recently, it's not been safe to do so.
Fantastic. And I'm sorry.
Like, they got a lot of backlash when they did.
Yeah.
Even though.
A fantastic example. If anybody knows Abigail Thorne with Philosophy Tube, I think within the last year came out as trans.
Yep.
So it's like, yeah, I get what you mean. The thing for me is, like, I don't know. It rubs me real fucking wrong when not only are you, like, influencing your fans to sort of idealize you, but the way it strikes me is that, like, when people do that shit, right? I'm being specific more to Dream because I don't know enough to make affirmative statements about anybody else in the community. But when people do shit like that, right? What ends up happening is people want to see themselves in the characters that they watch, right? And because Dream on camera is not a person, he is a character, very specifically portrayed to seem like a person, right? When you have young queer people watching him, right, that want to have a person to sort of look up to, idealize, and have as their, without a better term, a hero or, like, idol, right? And then even if it's performative, like, Dream is like, oh, I might be homosexual or whatever the fuck, right? Whatever he's doing at that in particular time, right? People are like, wow. And now, even though he never stated anything, like, in the affirmative or whatever, or he's just playing a role, a lot of his fans will now see that in him, and the ones who don't want to see it will not see it. Does that make sense? So it's like, it's manipulative in a way that it fucking rubs me wrong, mainly because it's kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think representation in media is important, especially, like, there's those studies that say, like, if you see, for example, let's say a Filipino woman on a popular broadcast, and that they're the hero, right? You don't see a Filipino actress playing a character in a show. You see a Filipino person, and you cannot really, like, in your mind, they register that as a time when you saw a Filipino woman doing something that was good and awesome, right? In the same way that if you have, like, cops shown in media, known as propaganda, like, cops doing good shit, it will make people think they don't, like, people when they think back on it, when they see a cop, they won't think, oh, all this bad shit they did. They'll only remember the times they saw them in media and be like, oh yeah, cop good, right?
Yeah, when you see them on Law and Order actually doing their job correctly
And you
goodly,
think they actually do their fucking job literally at
Exactly.
all. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm fine with that, right? Like, but it just seems manipulative to sort of like occupy that space as someone who doesn't come from it. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
if I had my way, there would be more popular like queer fucking people that have those types of audiences. But by like sort of assuming that identity, or at least sort of wearing that mask, they sort of, in a way, take away from like the other people who are doing it. Does that make sense? And it's not necessarily like I said, it's the cynicalness of the whole endeavor that fucking annoys me and rubs me the wrong way, because it's for money. You know what I mean?
The sort of intentional ambiguity.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's queer baiting and shit. I don't fucking
Yeah.
like that. It, like I said, like me and Mike were talking, it's like, oh yes, it's like when the U.S. government's like, or Israel's a great example. Yeah, we have vegans in the military, and we have fucking we all allow all queer people in the military. And everybody's like, yeah, right? But then it's like, oh yes, but you are blowing up children with missiles, correct? And they're like, yes, we are definitely doing that.
Yeah, and
Right.
also gay marriage is outlawed in Israel.
Yeah, you see what I mean? It's that kind of shit. It's like performatively backing things that you don't actually believe in. It's just so fucked. But I think it's like, just I don't know. It's something wrong. I'm not saying that like Dream's a fucking horrible person. I think he's a shitty person, to be fair.
I think
But
he's a horrible
for
person.
for this specific thing, I'm not saying this is an indictment of that specific action making him a horrible person. But it's just like, holy fucking shit, dude. It's so awful, man. I just don't like it. I fucking hate when people do that kind of shit. Because it's like, I don't know. You're teaching these fucking kids to like worship celebrities and like sort of fall for them whenever they do anything that even remotely like seems good, as a way to make yourself like, it feels like a PR move. Does that make sense? I don't know. It's all cynical. It fucking annoys me.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, again, it's the you're not doing it because of some sort of altruistic like notion of, yeah, I want to do this because it's the right thing. It's, oh, this is going to generate more engagement and revenue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just like, I don't know. It's just it's so fucked. Do you have any other hot takes, Nerd? You hate anybody else that also does Minecraft that you want to cause beef with? Beef is good for viewership, Nerd. Come on, let your hot takes flow.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Damn, feels bad. I don't know. I just like Dream immensely.
Yeah, your pivot to a drama channel is not going well.
Oh fuck yeah, dude. No, I could spit hot fire for like hours, bro. I talked about that Grant Atchins dude for like almost an hour, Mike, and I've heard him talk like twice. So trust me, Mike, my drama channel would be impeccable in its ability to cause a flaming hot fire to spill from my lungs. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's enough ground covered for today. You guys have anything else you wanted to say? Oh yeah, Nerd, go ahead and plug your channel. I'll put it in the description. But where can people find you, Nerd?
It is twitch.tv/Nerdvana12.
Hell yeah. Anything else you want to let the people know?
I scream a lot at Minecraft, so I mean, if you don't like screaming people, you probably won't like it. But
if you're a child
we're funny.
And you want if you want to watch more Minecraft, Nerd has got plenty of extra Minecraft content. When you're on your fucking like what the fuck are those things called? Oh geez, whatever. You guys know like those cases where it's supposed to look like an animal. You know what I'm talking about? Like your Froggy phone or whatever the fuck. they're like smartphones made for children. If you're on like your Froggy phone or whatever the fuck, and you've run out of Dream content, instead of going to Twitter, go watch Nerdvana 12 on Twitch. They got plenty of VODs. You got a YouTube channel as well, Nerd?
Yeah, it is the same thing.
Yeah, go on the fucking channel, watch all of Nerd's things. Great content. I've actually watched a few of your streams. I literally like put it on the second monitor and was just doing other shit, by the way.
Oh,
Last time I checked, you were solo though, so I was like, damn, where are all the fucking friends at? Nerd, do you have any like parasocial thing that you want them to know about you? Any ambiguous like identity you want to assume for cynical clout gain?
I mean, not really.
Yeah, that's probably a bit of a dense statement. Well, in any case, this has been Talking Topics. We'll see you next week, folks.